Hi everyone, it's John Mitchell, and in this video we're going to address the concept of the learning organisation. The learning organisation was a theory developed by Peter Senge, and he said that a learning organisation is a business that's flexible, adaptive and productive. And he states that the learning organisations aim to have a culture where people work together at their best and continually learn to work together at their best. So the business and its people are constantly learning together, hence the term the learning organisation. Now, he found that businesses that are more flexible, adaptive and productive will actually excel during times of rapid change. There are 5 key principles of the learning organisation, and we'll go through each one of these in the following slides. There's no particular order of these principles, there's no hierarchy or anything of that nature, but all principles need to be present for a business to be deemed a learning organisation. The first principle we'll go through is systems thinking. Now, systems thinking is the ability to see the big picture rather than see things in isolation. A manager that is able to demonstrate systems thinking is able to see the interrelationships and the connections between different parts of the business. Now, in terms of this theory, a business to be deemed a learning organisation, they need to implement all of the other 4 principles, because one principle on its own does not work without the others. They all impact each other. So, as I said earlier, to be a learning organisation, they need to implement all of these principles. Now, to give you an example of systems thinking, let's look at an actual example. Imagine a manufacturing business that has a goal to increase profits, which is a common goal for many businesses. Now, the business may look to reduce their costs in order to increase their profits, and through their analysis they find that they have high material costs. So their strategy could be to purchase cheaper materials. Now, by looking at the material costs on their own is not demonstrating systems thinking, because what can happen is by using cheaper materials, it could be that things like it increases wastage. It could be that the quality of the end product is now inferior because of the cheaper materials, which could then result in less sales. The lower quality materials could even jam the machinery during production, which would impact productivity. So there's a whole series of negative impacts that could happen if they were to purchase cheaper materials. Now, I'm not saying purchasing cheaper materials isn't a legitimate strategy and that it can't work, because of course it can. But to implement systems thinking, the business and its people need to look at the business as a whole and the interrelationship between each of its parts. Another principle of the learning organisation is personal mastery, which is where the people within the business undertake continual learning. Now, employees continuously work towards a vision of themselves that they actually create for themselves. So it's that real passion of an employee to want to get better, and they are driven to improve themselves in the areas that they desire. So again, that real passion. To allow that to happen, businesses need to provide an environment that allows individuals to follow that passion or their own passion. And Senge states that if individuals learn, the business will learn, which is the whole concept of the learning organisation. Now, with personal mastery, it can be common for people to think, well, if we need to get individuals to learn, then the best way to do that is to implement training programs. While this can be a legitimate strategy, it isn't always that simple. And Senge states, we just go to a quote, he states that well-intentioned compulsory personal growth training programs are probably the most surefire way to impede the genuine spread of commitment to personal mastery in an organisation. So, if that's the case, then what do businesses do to satisfy the personal mastery principle? Well, they need to foster a climate where challenging the status quo, so what's normal, is expected, and where employees are encouraged to create their own visions and pursue their passions. That's the key to personal mastery. The next principle of the learning organisation is mental models, which are the deeply ingrained assumptions, generalisations and images of how people understand the world. So they're all those things that each individual has. So they're the beliefs and values, and these beliefs and values direct how we behave, how each individual behaves. And during transformation, or to be a learning organisation, the business and its people need to really look at themselves and scrutinise what they do, and really look at, well, why is it that they do the things that they do? What are those real strong assumptions, generalisations, beliefs and values that they have that is making them do the things that they do, or stopping them from learning new ways of doing things? Now, just to give you an example of mental models, Senge spent some time with a group of auto executives around the time that US car manufacturers had finally realised that Japan was steadily gaining market share and profit share in their industry, in companies like Toyota. The US executives had just flown to Japan to view the operations of some of those manufacturers and were speaking to Senge when they returned. And he found that they were quite unimpressed because they said, well, they didn't show us the real plants. When Senge inquired further, the executives said that they had been manufacturing for decades and that it was a staged tour because there was no inventory in these plants. And to manufacture cars, you need lots of inventory. So they kept going on about their experience and how they know what a real car manufacturing facility looks like. And they were convinced that it was a staged tour when they went to Japan. Now, we know today that these factories were running a just-in-time system that has transformed the way manufacturers operate. However, because of the mental models of the US car executives or the beliefs of how they thought a facility should operate, the US auto executives couldn't see improvements that could be made in their own factories. The next principle of the learning organisation is having a shared vision, which is being able to develop a vision that all the people within the business believe in. So we've spoken earlier about, personal mastery and how individuals actually create their own visions for themselves. Now it's about having a shared vision that all the people believe in terms of what they're doing within the business. And what that does, it develops commitment rather than compliance. So what we mean by compliance is where a manager just says, well, this is where we're heading and do this, do that, and they comply. However, commitment is building something that the individuals actually believe in, and so they're committed to it. And having all people on the same page can develop a long-term drive towards transformation where every individual and the business continues to learn and develop and transform. The final principle of the learning organisation is that of team learning, which is the process of aligning and developing the capacities of a team to create the results that its members truly desire. So earlier we spoke about personal mastery and how individuals learn and how they follow their vision. Well, it's important that they do that, but then as individuals learn, they then also need to learn together. And Senge found that individuals that learn together will grow more rapidly, and that's what can really help a learning organisation where the whole organisation is continuing to learn and work out ways to work better together. So he opens up this chapter of his book talking about the Boston Celtics, and just a quote that I think really hits home about what team learning is. He said, well, Celtics legend Bill Russell says that we were a team of specialists, and like a team of specialists in any field, our performance depended both on individual excellence, but here's the team learning bit, and how well we work together. So yes, personal mastery is really important in terms of getting that individual excellence, but then the whole team within an organisation also needs to learn how to work well together. And so that's the whole concept of team learning. Now, just before we finish up, we're going to talk about leading a learning organisation. And Senge states that a learning organisation requires a more contemporary form of leadership rather than just a manager that's telling employees what to do or setting just your stock standard training programs. And what he found is that there's three main areas. So leaders in the learning organisations are designers, where they're being able to design the purpose, the vision, and the core values, not just saying what to do, which is also important, but really designing that purpose and vision. Stewards, their leaders look after and protect that vision rather than own it. So they don't own it, they're just there to protect it and allow everyone to embrace that particular vision. And finally, the leaders of a learning organisation are teachers, where they're able to foster an environment where learning is for everyone, which really is the basis of the learning organisation. So just to recap, the learning organisation is a business that is flexible, adaptive and productive, which allows them to excel during times of change. So there are 5 key principles that we went through today of the learning organisation. There's no particular order, but they were systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, shared vision and team learning. So for questions, activities and more, then come on over to teachingbubble.com.